Hello and welcome to Rav's IS Study Circle. In this video of QIP Mains question and answer discussion, we are going to discuss question of history of modern India and post-independence history. The first question which we are going to take up reads that discuss the circumstances leading to the crisis of 1991, the economic crisis it was, how far the reforms were successful in creating a stronger India. First question is that why we have made this question. We have made this question because post-independence, for the first time we had faced such kind of economic crisis. Till 1991, most of our 5-year plans were successful, and despite having the successful 5-year plans, what were the reasons we had to face this kind of crisis? So, it is an important event of postmodern India. We had to face a severe economic crisis of 1991, and we introduced, to overcome this problem, several long-term reforms that we are still following. So this is an important theme, crisis we had to face, and the severity of this crisis makes it important for UPSC main syllabus. Many times the questions have been asked from this theme, and that is why we have chosen this theme for the main stage. Now let's start the discussion on this question. That discuss, first thing is that discuss the circumstances leading to the crisis of 1991. This is the first part of the question, that we have to discuss several circumstances and we have to make an assessment of these reforms. We have to analyze up to what extent, the second part of the question says, up to what extent these reforms were successful. So in order to answer these two things, in order to satisfy these two demands of the question, we need to write. This is related to static portion, very static in nature, while this is dynamic in nature. Dynamic in nature means we can add current affairs, we can add the knowledge till now in this part of the answer. If we talk about the circumstances, we will be categorizing these circumstances under different headings. We can write about several circumstances. We can categorize them such as what were the structural features which led to inefficiency. These structural features were the import substitution industrialization strategy, license and quota raj, red tapeism, MRTP Act, which actually went against the basic principle of economies of scale. This MRTP Act punished efficiency because if any company is using its resources wisely and making efficient production, then it was required to have a lot of permissions from the government for the expansion of the company or for the closure of the company. So this actually went against the productivity of the company. Also, there were some reservation of certain sectors. When we reserve any sector for small scale industries, it actually hampers research and development work, mass scale production, use of technology, etc. So these were the structural reforms which actually led to the crisis of 1991. The second factor which we can write here is the issues of public sector. There were several public sector companies which were actually doing good, but a lot of public sector companies or PSUs were actually under the political and bureaucratic control and pressure, and that is why they suffered loss. They also suffered from the problem of overstaffing, inefficient management, irresponsible trade unionism, and failure to exercise efficiency and accountability on their employees. So these were the issues with the public sector, and that is why they could not produce with their capacity. The next problem was problem of exit. If any company is not making profits and is incurring so many losses, then it was not allowed to shut down their businesses. They had to obtain permissions from the government, and this actually made them dependent on red tapeism. It increased the corruption, and so many loss incurring companies had to suffer. That is why people having lot of capital were hesitant in investing those capitals in the manufacturing sector. Fourth was the increasing fiscal deficit. Increasing fiscal deficit also led to the crisis of 1991. As we know that we were having a strong economic growth in 1980s, but it was mostly debt financed. Fiscal debt of combined state and central government expanded, and there was also expansion in foreign loans. It was getting difficult to even pay the interest of these loans. So this also led to the crisis of 1990. The last point is of political crisis. As we know that the stable government was lacking by that time, the Congress had failed miserably, and so many small parties were making coalition governments, and this actually led to the political crisis in India. These small parties were actually inefficient in handling the economic situation of that time, and they were using the resources of the state for their personal use. There were some irresponsible expenditures which was not fit for the country of that time. The immediate cause of this crisis of 1991 was the Iraqi-Kuwait war. Due to the Iraq-Kuwait war, there was a sudden spike in the oil prices, and this declined the remittance income from abroad. We know that there are so many Indians who live in the Middle East region, and they regularly send their remittances to India. But due to this Iraq-Kuwait war, those remittances were stopped, and credit rating of India was declined sharply. This made it difficult to raise the credit abroad. Many of the NRIs withdrew their deposits in foreign exchange, and the fall of USSR, it deepened the situation, the economic crisis. We were having rupee dominated trade with USSR, but with the fall of USSR, this market was not accessible, and that is why we had to suffer in the severe way. So these are the points which we have to write in our answer. Let's move to the sample answer of this question. In the introduction of this sample answer, we have mentioned that we were having solid foundation, but still we had to face this type of economic crisis. This crisis was because of the long-term structural weaknesses, as we have seen few minutes back, that these structural weaknesses were the main cause of this crisis. So here ends our first part of the question. Now come to the second part of the question. These are the structural features which actually led to the inefficiency and crisis. We have discussed each and everything, and in the sample answer we have written and mentioned all these things in a very brief manner, because the word limit of the question is only 250 words, and we have to answer 2 questions in 250 words. So in a brief manner we have mentioned all these things. I have told you that there were some issues with the public sector. It was suffering from the inefficiency, the political and bureaucratic pressure were there, overstaffing, the problem of inefficient management, and the irresponsible trade unionism was there. Fiscal deficit and foreign debt was increasing, and that's why we had to face such kind of things. Under the political crisis, there was a lack of stability in the government, and I have told you that there was an immediate cause of this crisis, and this immediate cause was Iraq-Kuwait war. So these are the causes, these are the circumstances which led to the economic crisis of 1991. Now come to the second part. How far the reforms have been successful? This has been asked in the second part of the question. We have to answer it in a very brief manner, and that's why we have mentioned that rapid economic growth of economy for nearly 3 decades. Rapid increase in foreign direct investment as we had opened our economy and introduced LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Under the liberalization, we removed the license quota Raj. We tried to decrease the red tapeism. Under the privatization, we sold the equities in PSUs. We gave more autonomy to the profit making PSUs. We gave free hands to the management of PSUs to make their policies, made them actually free from the political and bureaucratic pressure. And that is why many of the PSUs which were incurring the losses in the past started making profits. And under the globalization, we acceded to the terms of WTO and agreed that foreign trade will be granted access. So these are the reforms which were introduced to combat the crisis of 1991. We tried to do everything which was possible by that time. These reforms were introduced by Dr. Manmohan Singh and are still relevant for the several benefits of LPG programs. They secured the rapid economic growth. They increased FDI. Inflation was brought under control, and several sectors of Indian economy grew with the full potential, such as auto parts, generic medicines, softwares, IT sector, engineering goods and textiles. So now we are reaping the benefits of those reforms which were introduced after 1991 crisis. And on the lines of those, in the conclusion part of this answer, we have mentioned each and everything and have reached to a well thought conclusion. Well thought, whenever we say well thought conclusion, it means that conclusion is based on views which we have written in content. This conclusion reads that India had been considered as a country with great potential but stuck in the bureaucratic red tape and lack of political will. Through the reforms of 1991, India has shown that it is ready to improve its industry and business and ensure better life and livelihood for its people. How we could do this? We could do this with the introduction of LPG. Through systematic reforms, India will become world's largest economy. So this is a very hopeful, optimistic conclusion. In the answer of such type of questions, we should always write an optimistic conclusion which shows that we can reach to great heights in future. Let's come to the review parameters. I have already told you that your answer will be relevant only if you are addressing these two kind of things, that the weaknesses of the then existing structure and issues with public sector, and we have to review the success of reforms. So these are the two things which are the core demand of the question. Under the answer enrichment points, we need to properly categorize our points using the different categories of aspects such as political, economic, structural, etc. and mention question specific keywords like red tapeism, license Raj, quota Raj. So these are the question specific keywords. If we are using these keywords, there are the chances that we will score well in this. Now come to the answer presentation. I have already told you that this question has been asked in 250 words, so there is need of intro, body and conclusion. And this question is asking for your conclusion, because the second part of the question says that how far these reforms were successful. So in this type of question, we cannot escape the conclusion and mandatorily we have to write a conclusion. If we talk about the presentation, parameters are same. Create the subheadings, points, bullets. Don't forget to highlight your points. Make a proper division of answer points according to categories. Point format is preferred as there is a lot of content available to be written in this answer. Arrange your points according to the significance or importance, or these points should be arranged in orderly fashion. Language and grammar must be good. The word limit here is 250 words. However, you can write your answer in maximum 265-70 words. So this answer is almost within the word limits. I hope you have read it. I hope this discussion will actually augment answer writing skills and you will be able to produce good answers if the questions of this theme are asked. Thank you.